Okay, starting back up again. Question 51. Which connector type is commonly used for Ethernet networking and supports both fast Ethernet and gigabit Ethernet speeds? So we're going to go with RJ45 here. That's the connector type we use for unshielded, shielded twisted pair, what we call Ethernet, right? An Ethernet cable, which is really just an RJ45 cable connector, right? And STP or UTP, unshielded or shielded twisted pair. Go ahead and pause the video if you'd like to read the explanation. Let me zoom in one more. Yeah, much better. Question 52. Which of the following best describes the concept of elasticity in cloud computing? So elasticity, that is the ability to scale up, scale down at a bang, right? Depending on the need, right? That's one of the benefits of the cloud. So let's take a look at our answers here. So we're going to go with B here. The capability to automatically scale resources up and down based on demand. And that's kind of like the textbook definition of elasticity. The NIST standard for what defines cloud computing, that's one of the 5 major tenets, right? What is a cloud service provider? What is cloud computing? It's elasticity. Question 53. LDAP's Lightweight Directory Access Protocol, secure. The secure version of LDAP operates on which port? That's 636. Not much to explain here. LDAPs is 636, okay? Question 54. In the context of cloud security, what is the primary role of a network security group within a VPC? Now remember, a network security group functions very similarly to firewalls. It filters VPC, virtual private cloud. I come from an Azure background. We call those VNets in Azure, but that's how we do network segmentation in the cloud. It's like our subnets, right? But what is their primary role of an NSG within a VPC? So that is going to be, we're going to go with A here because B does not provide encryption. It's not the private connection between a VPC and the internet. It's not what that does. There's other technology we can do for that. To route traffic between subnets within a VPC, no, that's on the backplane, usually within the cloud, cloud software defined networking. So within a VPC, it just automatically will route traffic for you unless you put in specific kind of peering rules or things like that. So we're going to go with A, to control and monitor traffic at the instance level based on defined security rules. And there's the explanation. Pause if you'd like to read it. Question 55. Which of the following IP addresses is a private IP address? So looking for the RFC 1918 standard when it comes to private IPs, we have 3 different classes of RFC 1918 private IP addresses. Class A, Class B, and Class C. I'm going to bring my pen up and go through with you the ranges of those different private IP addresses. So we have a Class A. Let me get this pen. So we have Class A private IP range. Oh, hold on. Let me unfull screen this. Kind of weird. I'm on a MacBook. It does that. Okay. There we go. So we have Class A RFC 1918 range, and that's going to be 10.0.0 through 10.255.255.255. And you know what? In my comments, people have told me my handwriting's awful, so I'll just write this out. So Class A is 10.00 through 10.255.255.255. Then we have Class B RFC 1918 range, and that's going to be 172.16.00 through 172.31.255.255. And then we have Class C, which is going to be 192.168.00 through 192.168.255.255. Now, this is going to be a /16. I can't go back up. Sorry, guys. You're going to get the pen. I know, my bad handwriting. That's a /16 for the Class C. This is a /12. And this is a /8. So now, let's go ahead and take a look at our answers here. The only one that falls within one of these ranges is going to be B here. So that's going to be our answer. It's B. That is a Class B address for the private IP address range. Pause the video if you'd like to read the explanation. Question 56. Which protocol is used to securely transmit web pages and operates on port 443? So that's the Hypertext Transfer Protocol, secure, which has TLS on top of it that's going to do our data in transit encryption. So that is HTTPS. HTTP being port 80, right? The unsecure version. Question 57. What device operates primarily at the data link layer to forward data based on MAC addresses? So MAC addresses, the 12 hexadecimal digit. Sometimes my tongue gets a little tied. That's layer 2. So the layer 2 header is going to be built off a source and destination MAC address. We call those frames. Switches in a local area network are what forward frames in the network. This works by a switch taking the ingress source MAC address, inserting it into what's called a MAC address table or a CAM table, content addressable memory table. They're the same, synonymous, and correlating that MAC address to a port and a VLAN. And then the switch will look at the destination MAC address, and that's what it uses to forward. So it'll look at the destination MAC address of an inbound frame, reference the MAC address table, see if it knows where that destination MAC address lives on what port, and if it does, it'll forward it to that port. So question 57, what device operates primarily at the data link layer, that's layer 2 of the OSI model, to forward data based on MAC address? That's going to be a switch. You can pause the video if you'd like to read the explanation. Question 58. Which traffic type is used when a packet is sent from one sender to all devices in a network segment? That's going to be a broadcast. So when you put in the destination IP header, the broadcast address of a subnet, every single device on that LAN that's connected that has an IP address will receive that message. That's going to be a broadcast. Go ahead and pause the video if you'd like to read the explanation. Question 59. Which of the following protocols is primarily used for network diagnostics and operates without a specific port number? So that's going to be B, ICMP, which is ping, the Internet Control Message Protocol. Question 60. In IPv4 addressing, which of the following addresses is considered private and not routable on the internet? So we just went over what private IP addresses are. They're RFC 1918 addresses with a class A, B, and C range. Let's check out which one fits that. That's going to be B. That's going to be in the class A range of the private IP addresses. Pause the video if you'd like to read the explanation. Question 61. What is the primary benefit of multi-tenancy in a cloud environment? So multi-tenancy is how in the public cloud, if I'm deploying a VM, another organization or individual is deploying a VM, that VM, that actual compute, storage, network resource is all going to live in that same cloud data center, possibly on the same actual piece of hardware, right? So that's multi-tenancy. So when we have that multi-tenancy, we get charged on like a per use basis, right? That's how the public cloud works is if you use it, we're going to charge you, right? Pay as you go model. So with that, there's a cost savings to it, right? So what is a benefit? It's not going to be the increased complexity. It's not going to dedicate servers to individual users. That's not multi-tenancy. That'd be single tenancy or like a private cloud solution, or not even a cloud solution at all, right? Maybe renting data center rack space, which is not a cloud thing. Improve security through data isolation? No, it doesn't have that at all. So we're going to go with A here. Cost savings through shared infrastructure and resource utilization. Go ahead and pause the video if you'd like to read the explanation. Question 62. What is the primary function of a router in a network? So a router, right, that's going to learn about its neighbor's routes, it's going to share with its neighbor routers the routes it knows, and it's going to be forwarding IP-based packets to reach its end destination based off an IPv4 or an IPv6 address. So that is going to be B, to connect multiple networks and route data between them. That's the router's primary function. Go ahead and pause the video if you'd like to read the explanation. Question 63. In a private cloud deployment model, who is typically responsible for managing the infrastructure? Okay, so private cloud. Depending on how you look at what a private cloud is, and there's obviously a textbook definition, but a private cloud could be like a data center that you run, that you create a cloud solution for. And what I mean by that is you look at the 5 tenets and the NIST model of what cloud computing is. If you take a data center and you make it elastic, you make it so that users can easily access it over a portal, over the internet, that could be a private cloud solution. Now, the big cloud service providers also have private cloud solutions to sell to customers, okay? So this one is kind of a tricky question. Who is typically responsible for managing the infrastructure? I'm going to go with the organization's IT department. That's what they're trying to get you to realize what the private cloud is, right? Even though, yes, like AWS could give you a bare metal server, right? And the power, the security of that data center will still be on AWS, but you manage everything else, which is kind of more infrastructure. It gets real muddy, but they could call that a private cloud solution, right? But in this scenario for the Network Plus exam, you think private cloud, think your organization creating that private cloud, right? So we're going to go with C, the organization's IT department. Question 64. Which protocol uses a 3-way handshake process to establish a reliable connection between two devices? That's going to be TCP, right? TCP, a TCP connection, when we're creating a TCP data connection, we have SYN, SYN-ACK, and then an acknowledge message, right? From client to server, server to client. Once we do that, what's called 3-way handshake, through the TCP flag, SYN, SYN-ACK, and then acknowledge, that is the transmission control protocol that gives us reliable connections. Pause the video if you'd like to read the explanation. Question 65. Which statement best describes the difference between an IDS, intrusion detection system, and an IPS, intrusion prevention system? So I'm going to go with A here. It's pretty easy, right? Detection. It just detects. It just alerts the SOC, the engineers, system admins, cybersecurity analysts of something that may be potentially malicious, or something that is malicious, or something that deviates from the user baseline. IPS can also do the same thing, but it can prevent too. It can actually take action and block threats. So we're going to go with A. An IDS monitors and alerts, while an IPS can take direct action to block threats. Pause the video if you'd like to read the explanation. All right, question 66. What does a stateful firewall primarily do? So stateful versus stateless. With a stateful firewall, what that does is it's actually going to look at the connections. It's going to track active connections originating from the inside network to the outside network, right? Stateless, it just doesn't do that. It just does the permit and deny filtering, that rules that you put on it. This answer is going to be B. Tracks the state of active connections and makes decisions based on the context of the traffic. Go ahead and pause the video if you'd like to read the explanation. Question 67. What does a PIPA stand for, and what is its function? So a PIPA, that's going to assign a Windows machine an IP address when it's not statically set, or the DHCP server is not configured or can't be reached, or has ran out of IP addresses, so it's reached address exhaustion, okay? So it's going to be C. Automatic private IP addressing assigns a private IP address when a DHCP server is unavailable. And don't think of a private IP as the RFC 1918 standard. These are just another range of IP addresses that are not routable on the internet that Windows has like pretty much secluded from the public IP routable ranges. Pause the video if you'd like to read the explanation. And then, yes, this is the range right here, if you'd like to take down the note of the range of an PIPA address. Question 68. Which of the following best describes the primary function of a network address translation gateway in a virtual private cloud? So NAT in the cloud doesn't differ from NAT in a traditional network. Obviously, we're going to configure different, deploy different, manage different. It's cloud. It's software-defined networking. But NAT is still going to take that private IP, which is going to be like that backplane cloud source provider IP address that is going to be assigned to your infrastructure, to like VMs, containers. And the NAT gateway is going to be able to take that private IP address on that VM, private IP address in your containers, whatever resource has it, and be able to translate it to an IP address that's routable in the actual internet or to the ISP, okay? And what's great about this is that from the cloud perspective, so now our resources can reach out, but instead of assigning a static public IP to a VM and letting the whole world know that we have that public IP and now we're exposed to DDoS attacks, and we don't have firewall rules, and we have like port 80, a vulnerable port on there, we can get exploited, which does happen. If you watch the video series, I tell a story about that happening within my organization. It can happen to anyone. The NAT gateway won't let inbound internet traffic straight to that resource. It's kind of like almost like a proxy. So we're going to go with B. To allow instances in a private subnet to access the internet without allowing inbound internet traffic. Question 69. Which protocol is used to send emails and operates on port 25? That's going to be SNMP, the Simple Mail Transfer Protocol. Go ahead and pause the video if you'd like to read the explanation. Question 70. What is the primary purpose of a content delivery network? So a CDN is going to give us that ability to actually cache things in a global network, right? And allow us to have quicker response times for our users when accessing the content of our website. So it's not going to be A. It's not going to be B. It's going to be C, to deliver content such as web pages and videos to users based on their geographic location. It makes our response times, makes our websites more responsive to our users. Pause the video if you'd like to read the explanation. Question 71. Which generation of cellular technology introduced support for high-speed data transmission with speeds up to 1 gigabits per second, enabling mobile internet and video streaming? So off rip, obviously, we're like, that's fast. That's probably going to be 5G. Now, it's actually 4G LTE. Now, you may be saying, well, I've never got those speeds. And it's way more complicated than that, right? Because imagine a cell tower. If you brought your phone to a 4G LTE tower with no other phones connecting to it, straight signal, right where you need to be for the strongest signal possible, you can get that speed. It's like a theoretical speed. It's, hey, this is in a lab environment. We generated a 4G LTE signal to an antenna receiver and then tested the speed in this little closed off environment, and we got 1 gigabits per second. Obviously, we know we're not getting those download and upload speeds, right? But that's in a controlled environment 4G LTE brought. And then 5G just increased that like crazy, and then 5G is now more reliable to do things like, hey, I can have my broadband connection be a 5G connection, okay? But this answer is C, 4G LTE. Go ahead and pause the video if you'd like to read that explanation. Question 72. Which protocol is primarily used for storage area network SANs and supports high-speed data transmission over fiber optic cables? That's fiber channel, okay? Fiber channel is going to be when we have those NetApps, those Dell EMC storage area networks that are so robust, petabytes of storage and data being stored there, and we need to get that to the rest of the data center and our LAN and our enterprise. We can implement fiber channel as that connection type. Go ahead and pause the video if you'd like to read the explanation. Question 73. Which of the following protocols is used for securely sending emails and operates on port 587? We can get rid of C and D, right? Those are not email protocols at all. SMTP is an email transfer protocol, but it's unsecure. That's A. It's SMTP secure, right? That's what that extra S stands for. Go ahead and pause the video if you'd like to read the explanation. Question 74. Which protocol provides a connection-oriented service over IP for reliable communication? This is going to be transmission control protocol. We've had a couple questions kind of in this similar vein. It's important, though, that we understand reliable, connection-oriented equals TCP. But yes, that is the transmission control protocol. Go ahead and pause the video if you'd like to read the explanation. Question 76. Which of the following is a key benefit of using Secure Access Service Edge? So SASE, SASE, SASE. I've heard it called a couple different things from different people. But what is the purpose? What's the key benefit of using Secure Access Service Edge? Secure Access Service Edge does a lot of things, right? It's kind of that central focal point if you want to do like SDN, have a security threat umbrella all into one device or one offering, one solution. But yes, one of the things it does, one of the key benefits, is it centralizes network security and improves access performance by leveraging cloud native architecture. So kind of gets that hybrid environment, cloud, on-prem, data center, enterprise networks, and kind of combines it into one, right? Secure Access Service Edge that can do a lot of our EDR, XDR, our Cloud Access Security Broker. It can even do SDN as well for us. So, but yes, the answer here is B. Go ahead and pause the video if you'd like to read the explanation. Question 76. Which of the following best describes infrastructure as code? So it's not going to be A. It's not manual configuration, right? Infrastructure as code is us codifying our network, looking at our network like a single code base to give it that consistency, right? So we're going to go with C. A practice that uses code to automate the management and provisioning of infrastructure. Go ahead and pause the video if you'd like to read the explanation. Question 77. What is the main goal of implementing quality of service QoS in a network? Quality of service. It is there when we have congestion. We implement QoS when we notice that at some link we're getting data congestion. So what we need to do now is start prioritizing, queuing things, and marking things so that they have priority so we can utilize all of our bandwidth with the idea in mind that this is business-specific applications are going to get priority, everything else can get queued. Moral of the story, though, is when we implement QoS, it's to prevent that congestion. It's to prevent critical network traffic from dropping or getting discarded from that outbound router, our demarcation point. So we're going to go with B, to ensure that critical network traffic receives priority over less important traffic. Go ahead and pause the video if you'd like to read the explanation. Question 78. What is the primary purpose of Secure Access Service Edge, or SASE? So it's going to be B, to unify network security and wide area networking in a single cloud delivered service. I forgot to pause the video if you want to read the explanation, guys. Question 79. Which protocol provides secure file transfers and operates over port 22? So that's SFTP, the Secure File Transfer Protocol that uses SSH to actually transfer data. So it's actually native to SSH. We just call it SFTP because it's added on some features to do file transfer protocol. So that is Secure File Transfer Protocol, utilizing the Secure Shell SSH. Question 80. What is the main benefit of a collapsed core network design? So we have our 3-tier, we have our collapsed core. 3 tiers for those large campus networks, very large, thousands, tens of thousands of users, and you have 3 layers, a core, distro, and access layer. You look at the Cisco model, that's the core 95, 9600 Catalyst, distro 9400, or 9500, it depends, and then the 92, 9300s at the access layer. With the collapsed core, we're going to combine that core and distribution layer for our small to mid-sized environments that maybe don't need that robustness of a total 3-tier core topology. But, so our main benefit, simplify management and the cost, really the reduced cost. Question 81. Which of the following is a primary reason for using SSH instead of Telnet? This got to be a give me. SSH is secure. It's encrypted. It uses RSA, asymmetric encryption keys, to establish secure session. Go ahead and read the explanation, or pause the video if you want to read the explanation. Question 82. Which of the following is a characteristic of UDP compared to TCP? And this one I don't really like. They say UDP is faster, and really what they're trying to say here is since we don't need that three-way handshake, we don't have TCP window scaling issues, UDP is used for data transfers that need to be in real time. So like video, voice, live streaming, things like that. So we're going to go with C though. UDP is faster and less reliable than TCP. Go ahead and pause the video if you'd like to read the explanation. Question 83. Which of the following is an example of a Class C IP address? So Class C is going to start at the 192 range. So we're going to have that answer is D. Go ahead and pause the video if you'd like to read the explanation. Question 84. Which tunneling protocol encapsulates a wide variety of network layer protocols inside virtual point-to-point connections? So going over some VPN technologies. So the only 2 answers we can have here is A or B. TCP UDP is not a tunneling protocol. Those are just our layer 4 transmission, transport layer protocols. Generic route encapsulation protocol, that allows all network traffic, multicast, whatever, broadcast, anycast, where IPsec doesn't. IPsec doesn't actually offer multicast. So I do believe that the answer for this question will be B, GRE, the generic route encapsulation protocol. And we got it right. Go ahead and pause the video if you'd like to read the explanation. Question 85. What is the primary advantage of using a full mesh topology in a network? It's just redundancy, right? Full mesh is going to provide you high redundancy, but at the increase of cost and the increase of complexity when it comes to management and monitoring and troubleshooting. But it's going to be C, high level of redundancy. Go ahead and pause the video if you'd like to read the explanation. Question 86. What is the primary purpose of the address resolution protocol? It's like ARP protocol, address resolution protocol. Anyways, that's the map layer 3 to layer 2. So that's to resolve IP addressing to MAC addressing, mapping layer 3 to layer 2. Initially, when we do this, it's so that we can build the entire packet with the layer 2, layer 3 header. When we want to talk outside our LAN, we need to send to the default gateway. We do that within the LAN by putting the default gateway's MAC address in the destination MAC of the layer 2 header, and we need ARP to be able to tell us as a device, hey, your default gateway 192.168.0.1's MAC address is the following, so now you can build your packet with the correct layer 2 header and layer 3 header. Long way to say, the answer is A, to resolve IP addresses to MAC addresses. There's the explanation. Pause the video if you'd like to read. Question 87. Which of the following is a key advantage of using network functions virtualization in a cloud environment? So taken away from the hardware, physical hardware that we may need to provide firewall services, things like that, and virtualizing that network function in some sort of data center or in the cloud. So I'm going to go with D because it provides us flexibility. We don't need the proprietary hardware anymore. And there's no more hardware dependency. That's the whole point of it. So we're going to go with D. Simplified and accelerated deployment of network services. Go ahead and pause the video if you'd like to read the explanation. Question 88. Which of the following scenarios is most likely to benefit from the use of a content delivery network? So we're going to go with B. A video streaming service looking to reduce buffering times for users around the world. That's what a CDN could be used for, right? It's to improve our response times for geographically dispersed locations, especially for like an international an enterprise or organization that's providing some sort of web-based service. Go ahead and pause the video if you'd like to read the explanation. Question 89. Which principle is not a core component of zero trust architecture? So, some of the core tenets of zero trust architecture, according to NIST. Principle of least privilege. Always assume breach. Never trust, always verify. So, what is not? A. Always trust users once they are inside the network perimeter? No. That's not the point of zero trust architecture. It's never trust, always verify. You can go ahead and pause the video if you'd like to read the explanation. Question 90. Which of the following is an advantage of using SaaS, software as a service, over traditional software deployment? It's the simplicity, right? It's the simplicity of us not managing our own LDAP, Active Directory domain, and just renting Google Suite, buying Google Suite, G Suite. So, also, it's just always access over the internet, because that's the thing, it's going to be C. But yeah, software is access over the internet, eliminating the need for local installations. Go ahead and pause the video if you'd like to read the explanation. Question 91. What is the primary purpose of an internet gateway in a cloud environment? So internet gateway. Good at looking at A or B here, and let's explain. So when we have cloud resources and we put them in a VPC or a VNet, maybe we want to deploy a resource, maybe it's part of that cloud service provider, that we need to give those resources in that VPC access to the internet. So an internet gateway we can deploy to connect that VPC or VNet to the public internet, and that will enable two-way traffic, inbound and outbound. So we're going to go with C here. So to connect a VPC to the public internet, enabling inbound and outbound traffic. Go ahead and pause the video if you'd like to read the explanation. Question 92. When you type a web address like example.com in a browser, which protocol is responsible for resolving this address to an IP address? That's DNS. DNS does host name to IP address resolution. So the domain name system is responsible. Go ahead and pause the video if you'd like to read the explanation. Question 93. In a star topology, what happens if the central hub fails? Then we're screwed, right? None of us are going to be connecting. So I'm going to go with B. The entire network becomes inoperative. And that's because a star topology, we have that, like, I would call it almost a hub. It kind of is a hub in the middle that's connecting all the outsides, all the spokes in a star topology. So B. Go ahead and pause the video if you'd like to read the explanation. Question 94. Which of the following strategies is used to ensure compatibility between IPv4 and IPv6 networks? So B, C, and D have nothing to do with interoperability of IPv4 and IPv6. The only answer here is A, dual stack, which is technology that allows a device, a single network component, hardware, infrastructure, device, to run both at the same time. So it's going to be dual stack. Go ahead and pause the video if you'd like to read the explanation. Question 95. Which of the following is a key characteristic of a spine and leaf topology? So spine and leaf, used in data centers, used a lot in SDN greenfield deployments, where we're building SD access, that fabric from the beginning. We want a spine and leaf topology. It allows for consistent latency, high speeds, and it allows for high redundancy without the need for spanning tree protocol, without the need for worrying about switching loops. That's how it's supposed to be. So we're going to go with C. It connects each node directly to every other node. Actually, let's look at B here too. It utilizes high performance switches. Performance switches for equal bandwidth. Actually, no. I misread C. So with spine and leaf, every leaf switch is only one hop away from each other. Doesn't mean they're directly connected to each other. So it would look like this. I'm going to do a really crappy spine and leaf architecture real quick. Let's say this is our spine right here, and we have all these leaf switches down here. Each one is going to have a connection to a spine. So that means for our leaf switches, we're always one hop away from each other, but doesn't mean we're directly connected to each other. That's not how a spine and leaf works. We don't have that direct connection between the leaf switches. So what we do, so what the answer actually is here is B. It utilizes high performance switches for equal bandwidth between endpoints and also equal latency and things like that. Go ahead and pause the video if you'd like to read the explanation. Question 96. Which ports are used by the Simple Network Management Protocol for sending queries and receiving trap messages? So SNMP, right? What are the SNMP port numbers? That's going to be 161 and 162. Question 97. Which of the following traffic types involve sending data to the nearest or best receiver among multiple potential receivers? So that's anycast, which allows us to essentially have a redundant IP address, a global IP address, but depending on what is closer, this could be geographic, could be based on other like speed, latency, things like that. Typically geographic. I'm going to go to the nearest address. So that's anycast. Anycast allows us to have that capability. Question 98. What is the difference between north to south and east to west traffic in a network? Okay, so north to south, east to west. So we think north to south, I always think of like our traditional networks where we may have a PC here and a printer here. They're both connected to a switch, which is connected to a router. However, let me bring my pen app into view as well. However, each are on a different VLAN. So this is like VLAN 10, and this is VLAN 20. So they each have their own IP address, or excuse me, their own subnet. Let's say this is 1.1.1.0/24. So when they need to talk, they don't just talk to each other within the same network segment. They have to go up north. I ever think of like upstream, downstream in a network topology. I know not all network diagrams look like this. Sometimes they, on the network diagram, may go left to right, but anyways, right? Follow me here. This is how I think of north to south. It's the correct way to look at it. They have to go up to some sort of routing device that can go between networks here. These are two different networks, two different VLANs, to be able to talk. So if you look at that, that's north to south, okay? Now, obviously, we can make a network diagram that's laid out like this. And you're like, that's not east to west, but, right, we get that. But conceptually, that's what's happening. It's going up to a routing device, an external network. So that's north to south. But also, we could have another PC over here that's in VLAN 10, and then that's within the same network, still north to south, going up to a switch and then back down, right? Whereas east to west, it's always within the same network segment. And we see this a lot within cloud environments. So if I set up a VNet and a couple subnets in there, resources within those subnets, I can actually apply different security settings and traffic flows just between those subnets in my cloud environment. So let's say I have like a VNet here in Azure. Let me get rid of this pen thing right here. So this is like VNet 1, and it's 10.0.0.0/16. But then I have subnets in here. And these subnets, this is like subnet 1. We'll go yellow. This is sub 2. And this is 10.1.0.0/16. This is 10.2.0.0/16. But I got VMs within this subnet. And I can apply like filtering, different access controls, right? That's east to west. That's what we consider east to west. And even between these, within the VNet, that's east to west, okay? So long way to get to where we're getting to now. But the answer is C. North to south traffic flows between external networks and internal networks. East to west traffic flows within the same network segment. Go ahead and pause the video if you'd like to read the explanation. Question 99. Which layer of the OSI model is responsible for translating data formats and handling encryption and decryption to ensure the data is in a usable format? That is going to be A, the presentation layer. Go ahead and pause the video if you'd like to read. That's layer 6. Last question. Let's go, everybody. Which protocol operates on port 389 and is used for managing directory services over a network? That's LDAP, the thing that enables us to do Active Directory. That's Lightweight Directory Access Protocol. Go ahead and pause the video if you'd like to read the explanation. And look at that. We got 99. I must have skipped a question. Now we got 100%. That's okay. But I want to thank everyone for viewing. If you're interested in getting access to this software, click the link in the description below. Stay tuned for our next video where we do another maybe 50 to 100 questions going over Domain 2 for the Network Plus exam.